UFC 283 is coming up later this weekend. This is my full card preview and predictions, and I cannot wait for this card. It's going to be very, very exciting. The UFC Apex card last weekend has got me more excited for this one. I'm so excited for this main card. The prelims are great too, and so are the early prelims. We've got 15 fights on the whole card, which is absolutely crazy. If you're wanting to bet on this card and you're wanting to get a little bit of extra money, use my 125% sign up bonus, which is just below there. Sign up to Bet US, use my code ARTEM, it's all in the link below in the description, and you'll get a 125% sign up bonus. So if you deposit $50, you've got $112.50 to play with. If you deposit $100, you've got $225 to play with. If you deposit $1,000, you got $2,000 to play with. You know what I mean? That's what you get. So it's a pretty good deal in my opinion, but man, I'm looking forward to this card. I don't want to waste too much time on this one, on the intro that is, and let's just get straight into it. Now I'm going to be open and honest, and I'm going to say we really could get the classic Arsen MMA start of an 0-2 start, because this Daniel Marcos versus Saimon Oliveira fight and the one after it, Luan Lacerda versus Cody Stamann, are tough fights to predict. I feel like anyone could admit that. I feel like everyone kind of like me that's making videos on this is probably going to struggle to find the good pick on that, but I am going with Daniel Marcos. Why did I say his name like that? Daniel Marcos. And in this matchup here, I do trust him to be able to get the win. I know he's training with Charles Rosa in the USA and has done for about the last year or so prior to his Dana White's Contender Series fight, which I picked him to lose because he hadn't fought for 3 years and he just wasn't looking all that impressive to me on the regional scene, but he showed pretty good takedown defense. Not incredible takedown defense against Brandon Lewis, but pretty good takedown defense. And he showed pretty good striking, and the fact that I think I can be confident enough in Daniel Marcos to beat Saimon Oliveira when the fight is on the feet. Saimon Oliveira, he is a Muay Thai striker, but I kind of recognize him as like a jiu-jitsu grappler sort of guy. He wants to get to the fight to the ground, and he's got very, very good submissions, especially front chokes. He's got front chokes, he's got guillotines, he's got just very good chokes in general. Most of his wins have really come by some sort of choke, or at least most of his wins recently have come by some sort of guillotine or front choke. So Daniel Marcos has got to watch out for that. I don't expect Daniel Marcos to be shooting for any takedowns, but if he does, they cannot be sloppy, because Saimon Oliveira's guillotine is pretty lethal and he can let shit up probably against anyone that shoots a sloppy takedown on him. But I do like Daniel Marcos in the fight here, a slight reach advantage. I think he's the slightly better striker, and I think he's going to keep the fight on the feet and win a decision. And what could be a very exciting fight, but I do think that Marcos is just a slightly better striker in the matchup. Oliveira's got more ways to win. He's a good striker himself, but for the most part, I do see him as the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who's going to have a big advantage on the ground. But I do trust Daniel Marcos to keep the fight on the feet and win it that way. And this next one is another fight that I'm not super confident in. We've got Luan Lacerda taking on Cody Stamann, and I'm going with Luan Lacerda in this matchup. I know it's pretty crazy as he's a massive underdog. He's a much bigger underdog than I thought when I saw that underdog line. I thought, man, there's got to be something I missed in the tape. But in this fight, it's a tough one because Cody Stamann, once again, he's got more ways to win. I do think Cody Stamann's got a very slight striking advantage in this one, because Luan Lacerda's striking doesn't really impress me, especially for someone who's been like the main training partner for Jose Aldo for quite a few years now as of recent. And Jose Aldo might even be in this guy's corner. Jose Aldo was in his corner for a couple of his LFA fights that he had recently, and he's just a guy that Luan Lacerda seems to keep around for very obvious reasons. It's Jose Aldo, and Jose Aldo walks out, the crowd is going to go nuts. It's going to be amazing. Hopefully it does happen. But I do like Luan Lacerda in this matchup just for kind of the way that he fights, especially in this matchup against Cody Stamann. Once again, I will reiterate, Cody Stamann has more ways to win, and that is why I think he's the favorite, but I do think the line is very wrong, and I do think Lacerda is going to win the matchup. Cody Stamann, in my opinion, he is the slightly better striker. Lacerda just hasn't really impressed me in the striking. He has been fighting quite a few strikers in his career, but he's been getting outstrike for quite a bit of them. But he does shoot for weird takedowns. Takedowns almost in the way that he'll shoot for the takedown, but then fall on his back to make sure he gets the takedown and give the opponent the top control so he can work off his back and work with his jiu-jitsu, which I normally don't like to see, because most times when you're fighting a good wrestler, they're really comfortable on top and they can kind of stay safe. and away from dangerous positions on the ground, which Lacerda is certainly going to be going for. But the way that this guy grapples is very impressive to me, and it does make me feel like he is going to get some sort of submission on Cody Stamann. Lacerda isn't working for submission, he just gets submissions like that. Like, he just goes for them and he gets them. He's very impressive. He's got a couple knee bars in his career, he's getting chokes as well, he's just getting a variety of submissions. He's not like a one-trick pony sort of guy, and I can see Lacerda winning this fight by submission at some point in the fight, not by grinding Cody Stamann and really working him to the point where Cody Stamann's tired. I think he's just going to get one in the first or the second round. It's just going to happen. On the feet, though, he's got a massive reach advantage, but as I said, he just doesn't really impress me that much on the feet, so I don't really like him in the striking. But I do think that he's going to stay safe on the feet, and I think he's going to lock up a sub. Not a lot of people coming in on Stamann now recently. It used to be 50-50 only a couple of days ago, but I'm going to go with Lacerda, man. I really do like this guy's submission ability. I like the fight style that he brings against someone like Cody Stamann. But once again, it could be the classic Artem MMA 0-2 start to the card, and then I really pull it together later on. But it's just a tough 2 fights to really start it, isn't it? In this next matchup, we've got Josiane Nunes versus Zarah. I am going to be going with Josiane Nunes here, but I'm not really that convinced she should be a minus 450 favourite in the matchup. Yes, she's going to have the home crowd advantage. Yes, she's going to have the power advantage. But to be fair to Zarah, she actually is a pretty good technical kickboxer, but she doesn't really have a ground game whatsoever. Her takedown defense hasn't been that great in her career, and her grappling defense hasn't been that great in her career either. She's lost twice in the UFC by first round finish to Felicia Spencer and Megan Anderson. She just hasn't fought that often, man. Her last fight was 2 years, 9 months ago. I like Josiane Nunes in the matchup. She's a pretty good striker, but she's really just packing up a lot of power in quite a small frame. Like, we're talking about a woman's 145-pound fight, and Josiane Nunes is 5'2". She's going to be a lot smaller than Zarah, but I don't think that's really going to be a bad thing. I think Josiane Nunes will be able to close the distance and then just land her power shots on Zarah. I do actually think that Josiane Nunes will get a KO at some point in this fight. But man, like, it's just a weird fight, isn't it? Women's 145 pounds. They just announced the Norma Dumont fight at women's 145. They just need to get rid of the division. The division's not even on the UFC website. It's just Amanda Nunes with no rankings whatsoever. It's a division that needs to go. Josiane Nunes, I think, could make women's 135. She's 5'2". And I think Zarah is going to get cut after this one. So give me Josiane Nunes by KO at some point in the fight. I can't really give you a round. It really could happen in the first. But Zarah is actually a pretty good striker, to her credit. So, yeah, I mean, if Zarah can out kickbox Josiane Nunes for 3 rounds, I will be impressed. But I do think that Josiane Nunes will find some sort of finish by KO in this matchup. And we've got another tough matchup, man. This card has not been good to me. I don't know how everyone else is feeling. I haven't seen anyone else's videos at the time of recording this. But, yeah, I'm struggling with the first few fights on the card, man. Saimon Oliveira is a tough fight to pick. Lacerda Stamann's a tough fight to pick. Alves Dalby's a pretty tough fight to pick. But I'm going with Warlley Alves. He's a very slight favourite in the matchup. I was originally on Nicolas Dalby. I thought he was going to get it done. And then I looked into a little bit more, and both guys aren't looking that great at this point in their career, are they? You know what I mean? Like, Warlley Alves is seeming to slow down, and he's very inconsistent. Like, when he shows up on his best day, he can submit Colby Covington, and then on his worst day, he's getting knocked out by Jeremiah Wells. And sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. It's tough to predict a guy that's inconsistent like Warlley Alves. And even Nicolas Dalby isn't looking that great recently either. I feel like he's almost arguably fighting pretty inconsistently. And he's 38 years old now. He just beat old man Claudio Silva, but he didn't really look that great. He lost to Tim Means, but Tim Means is a pretty good veteran, crafty veteran. But I've got Warlley Alves. I like Warlley Alves in the matchup. I think he's the more powerful guy. I think he's the guy more likely to find a finish. Do I think he gets a finish? Maybe, but I'm more just not gonna pick a prop in this fight. I think I'm just gonna go Warlley Alves. He's definitely the more likely guy to get a finish, but whether or not he gets a finish, I think is a tough one to call. But I do like Warlley Alves in this one here. I think he's gonna be kicking at the legs pretty hard on Nicolas Dalby, and if he's gonna be doing something, he's gonna be the more aggressive fighter. He's gonna be the more aggressive grappler. He's gonna be the more aggressive striker. But there's a chance that these guys just stare at each other in the middle of the octagon, but I don't think that will happen. I think Warlley Alves is going to initiate a bit of a brawl, kind of like he did against Jeremiah Wells, but he's going to have a lot more success because he's not fighting Jeremiah Wells. So give me Warlley Alves. I think there's a pretty decent chance he gets a finish, but I'm just going to go with the decision. But man, you just can't trust a guy that's inconsistent like this, and he hasn't fought for a year and 6 months either. But the thing about Warlley Alves that I do like is he's got a big home crowd advantage here, which I do think will help him. So yeah, I think we're going to go with Warlley Alves in this matchup here. And in this next matchup, we've got Terrance McKinney versus Ismael Bonfim. And the whole time I've been on the Ismael Bonfim side, I do believe in Ismael Bonfim. I picked him on his Dana White's Contender Series fight when quite a few people were picking Ismael Bonfim, to be fair. But I saw people on Twitter saying that they were going to line Narimon Abasov minus 300, and then the odds dropped and everyone was all over Abasov, man, because Bonfim was a slight favourite, I think, in that matchup. But Terrance McKinney, he's dangerous. He's very popular with the fans. He's very active on Twitter. I think he's just a guy that you can easily be a fan of, in my opinion. I do really understand why he's got a lot of fans. But in this matchup, in this fight, if he doesn't finish Ismael Bonfim in the first round, I think Ismael Bonfim is going to start to take over and win the second and third round. And I've got Ismael Bonfim by decision. I feel like Bonfim maybe is more likely to get some sort of submission win, but we know how good Terrance McKinney's wrestling is. And if Terrance McKinney wants to win this fight, in my opinion, he does have to lean on that wrestling a little bit. But then even then, you do have to worry about Terrance McKinney potentially slowing down in the matchup as well, because we have seen him slow down in the past, albeit he was emptying his gas tank trying to finish opponents. But I think Terrance McKinney's the more dangerous striker. Ismael Bonfim's more technical in my opinion, but he's also likes to brawl as well. Like, he's got an amateur boxing background, multiple time national Brazilian amateur boxing champion. I believe an amateur record of 14-2, pro record of 4-1. I could be wrong, but they're the numbers that I think I can remember. Terrance McKinney, he's very, very powerful guy on the feet, but he is a wrestler, and he does have a very good wrestling background that we just haven't really seen in the UFC yet. And I think that's where he's going to have most of his success with Ismael Bonfim. But Ismael Bonfim's a very good submission guy as well. He's got many submissions on his record, but for the most part, he has that boxing base, you know, like his brother as well. His brother who's on later on the card. But Ismael Bonfim, very good boxer, very good technical boxer. I think he's going to be moving and maybe frustrate Terrance McKinney on the feet. I think Terrance McKinney's going to slow down in the second and the third round, and that's where Ismael Bonfim's going to take over and win a decision. So give me Ismael Bonfim using his boxing. Maybe he might have to defend a couple of takedowns by Terrance McKinney, but he did show pretty good takedown defense against Narimon Abasov for the most part. And even then, if it does get to the ground, Ismael Bonfim's got a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background as well, and I think that he would be able to at least escape some positions that Terrance McKinney's going to get him in, and maybe work for submissions of his own, get the fight back to the feet. I think Ismael Bonfim's been very underrated in this matchup. Terrance McKinney as well, I believe, is very underrated in Ismael Bonfim as well. I've seen Terrance McKinney, he isn't talking down Ismael Bonfim, but he kind of doesn't seem to be rating Ismael Bonfim that highly from what I'm seeing on Instagram and Twitter, which makes sense. Like, that's what you're meant to do. But I think that he's going to really have to take Ismael Bonfim seriously in the matchup. And I think Bonfim might surprise a lot of people. So give me Bonfim by decision. This guy's a very legitimate prospect. If he beats Terrance McKinney, his name value is going to go up big time. He's going to be 19-3, which is just an insane record. And he's only 27 years old. But yeah, I feel like if Terrance McKinney wants to win the matchup, he might have to lean on the wrestling, or he's going to have to find a KO on the first. I just don't think Ismael Bonfim is going to allow that to happen. I think he's going to take over in the second and third round. The next fight is Jailton Almeida taking on Shamil Abdurakhimov, and I am going to be going with Jailton Almeida by finish in this matchup here. I don't think he gets a KO, which is what most of Tapology is thinking. I do think he's going to get a submission. But Shamil Abdurakhimov, to be fair to his credit, is actually going to be somewhat dangerous in the matchup, believe it or not. Jailton Almeida is very small for heavyweight, as in he weighs in at like 216 pounds in his last one. There was a catch weight at around 220, but Jailton Almeida has weighed in around like 215, 220 pounds for the heavyweight belts he's had in the UFC before, which is interesting because personally, I think that he's actually got a higher ceiling at light heavyweight than he does at heavyweight, but he seems to like fighting at heavyweight. Shamil Abdurakhimov seems to be keen to fight him because this fight's been rebooked a couple of times. I think Jailton Almeida does get it done though, but I don't think he's going to get it done by KO. Maybe he can because Shamil has been KO'd a couple of times, but they were against some pretty good heavyweights. And Sergey Pavlovich, who's just KO'ing everyone right now, KO'ing everyone. Chris Dalkaus, which I guess is a bit near, like he's a big middleweight realistically, but yeah, that wasn't really that good of a loss, was it? And he got knocked out by ground and pound with Curtis Blades. But Shamil Abdurakhimov, I think he would definitely be able to maybe defend a couple of Jailton Almeida's takedown attempts because he is quite big and he does have a pretty good wrestling and grappling background himself. But I do think Jailton Almeida is eventually going to overpower him and get a submission, or maybe like a ground and pound TKO, or maybe a KO on the feet because Shamil's been getting KO'd lately. But I think Jailton Almeida, I think it's maybe a more competitive fight than minus 1,000. I think minus 1,000 in MMA doesn't really make that sense because Shamil, although he's 41 years old, he's still a pretty big heavyweight and he still does hit pretty hard. And there is always a chance that maybe he can catch Jailton Almeida with something. But I do think Jailton Almeida wins. I think he wins by finish. It really could be by KO or submission, but I think submission's more likely just by the way that Jailton Almeida's ragdolling his opponents. But this is a big heavyweight that he's fighting Shamil Abdurakhimov. I know he fought Parker Porter in the past, but this is a step up in competition, even though Shamil is 41 years old. But yeah, give me Jailton, and let's just move on to the next fight. The next fight of the night is Gabriel Bonfim taking on Mounir Lazzez, and I do like Gabriel Bonfim in the matchup. It is a pretty tough stylistic matchup, almost for both guys really, because both guys are pretty well rounded, although Mounir Lazzez is probably more known as a striker, and Gabriel Bonfim you could argue is more known as a grappler. But I do like Gabriel Bonfim in the matchup, and I do believe he's going to get it done by submission in this one here. And Mounir Lazzez, very good striker, had a very good win over Angelusa, which has aged somewhat well since Angelusa recently did beat AJ Dobson. And Angelusa is just a tough guy in general, took on Jack Della Maddalena on short notice against Dana White's Contender Series. But Mounir Lazzez, very good striker, pretty good wrestler as well. I believe he took down Abdul Razak Al Hassan 4 times, and he fought Warlley Alves. Lost that fight in one of Warlley Alves' performances where he looks really good. And then, yeah, beat Angelusa. But I do think Gabriel Bonfim, man, I like Gabriel Bonfim striking and grappling kind of in the matchup. But when I say it's a bad stylistic matchup for both, I do think Mounir Lazzez might have a slight striking advantage in the matchup. And he has shown pretty good, I don't really want to say wrestling, but he's shown good abilities to defend takedowns and also good abilities to get takedowns if he needs to. And Gabriel Bonfim is just a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy with a boxing background just like his brother. And there almost is the argument to make that out of the two, I do think that Gabriel Bonfim probably has the higher ceiling, especially because he's fighting at 170 pounds and not 155, which is just an absolute war zone right now. Although 170 is crazy good as well. I like the fight. I think this is going to be a very fun fight. I think this is almost like fight of the night sort of style fight because it's going to be great. But I do think Gabriel Bonfim is going to be able to lock up some sort of submission. He fought a very short notice opponent in Trey Waters, but he just really impressed me with the way he managed to turn a guillotine attempt from Trey Waters into a Von Flue choke. That was a very impressive win. Very good show of like almost fight IQ and grappling and ability to find up a submission from anywhere really, because he was on a guillotine from Trey Waters and he locked up a submission. That's very impressive. Gabriel Bonfim, I think that both Bonfim brothers get it done. I think Bonfim wins by submissions. Again, Gabriel Bonfim in this matchup. Mounir Lazzez definitely has a chance by keeping it on the feet and maybe kickboxing Gabriel Bonfim, but I just think Bonfim, he's been so impressive on the regional scene. People have been talking about this guy for a very long time. He's finally in the UFC with his brother, and I think he's going to impress in his debut. And Mounir Lazzez isn't the easiest guy to make your debut against either, but I do think Bonfim gets it done by submission. So Thiago Moises versus Melquizael Costa is a pretty short notice matchup where Melquizael Costa is filling in on short notice against Guram Kutateladze, which would have been a very interesting matchup, but I do think Guram would have won that one. But now Thiago Moises is taking on the dangerous fighter in Melquizael Costa. You see this guy in quite a few corners. I believe I've seen him in Joe Anderson Brito's corner in the UFC, and he does make quite a few appearances around the scene of MMA and the UFC. He's a pretty dangerous striker and he's pretty well rounded, but we have seen Melquizael Costa out grappled before by lesser grapplers than Thiago Moises, which is why I do have to go with Thiago Moises by submission in this one here. And if you look at Thiago Moises' not record, we're looking at the odds. Thiago Moises is right now a minus 300 favourite over Melquizael Costa. These odds just dropped very recently, and it is about where I expected them to be, to be honest. Not really a disrespect to Melquizael Costa, but at the end of the day, Thiago Moises is a borderline top 15 guy, a guy that went 4 rounds with Islam Makhachev. He did lose to Yoel Alvarez after that, but he just submitted Christos Giagos in the first round. And he was formerly ranked, I believe he was ranked number 14. I don't think he did have a ranking beside his name. And then he fought Islam Makhachev, so that just gave him the number 14 ranking to make the win look a little bit better on Islam's record. But anyway, the point is he's a formerly ranked guy at not women's 155 as lightweight. And Melquizael Costa, at the end of the day, just at the end of the day, he's making his UFC debut on short notice against a borderline top 15 lightweight. And that tells you something, because lightweight is a tough division to be in right now. And Thiago Moises, in hindsight, getting a takedown over Islam Makhachev. Having some competitive moments with Islam Makhachev and making it to the 4th round as well. It's aging pretty well, isn't it? You know what I mean? I think that Thiago Moises will be able to out-wrestle and out-hustle Melquizael Costa in the grappling. Costa's dangerous. He's a very dangerous striker. He's got many finishes on his record. And I think he's going to have a good career in the UFC, but I just don't think he's going to get it done over Thiago Moises on short notice in this matchup. But give me Moises by submission. I think maybe like a 2nd round after Melquizael Costa makes it a little bit interesting on the feet, because I think Thiago Moises might try and run forward a little bit and fight like he did against Christos Giagos. But I do think at the end of the day, Melquizael Costa will have some success on the feet, but I think Thiago Moises will eventually take over and get a submission. I'm going to go with the 2nd round submission for Thiago Moises. This next one is very interesting. We've got Gregory Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira, and I'm going to be going a little bit controversial with this one. I'm going to be going with Bruno Ferreira in the matchup, not really for a traditional reason, but because I just don't trust the fact that Gregory Rodriguez is making a turnaround from 4 months ago, where he just had his head split open properly, and I just don't believe that the stitches or that scar that he's got remaining, or the cut, has healed over enough to the point where he can go into a UFC fight against a powerhouse in Bruno Ferreira and not reopen. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I'm just talking from personal experience here. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've got the worst double chin in history, but it actually comes from me having the scar right here, where it actually kind of splits my neck in half almost. So what I have is actually I've got a scar from my chin all the way to the back of my ear, and I'm telling you from personal experience, the scar is 2 years old. It wasn't stitched together, it was stapled together, but it is not healed. It is not healed whatsoever. Look at it, it's still bright red, you can see it, and that's a 2-year-old scar. And you're telling me Gregory Rodriguez, who is who had his head stitched together 4 months ago, is gonna it's gonna be all good to fight, you know. And I know I overheard Angelo talking on the We Want Pics YouTube channel that Jacob recently got some stitches on his face, and the doctor told him it would take 3 months to fully heal those. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, that scar, that cut is gonna reopen very, very easily, and I just can see it happening, man. So I do believe Bruno Ferreira is gonna win the fight. Not really because I think he's the better fighter. I think Gregory Rodriguez is the better fighter. But I can just see Bruno Ferreira running forward like a brawler that he is, and just landing something in between the eyes of Gregory Rodriguez. Maybe a knee, maybe a head kick. It's just something really powerful. And opening that scar up again, I really think it would be a knee that would do it. I think, I can't remember exactly what it was, actually, that opened it from Chidi Andrakwani, but an elbow, a knee, maybe some sort of punch would do it. But I do think Gregory Rodriguez is going to open up in this fight. And it's not going to be pretty, man, because you look at his Instagram. I really do encourage you to look at his Instagram and zoom in on some of his photos. Some of them are pretty old, but the scar is nasty. Like, it's not just a straight line. It's like a straight line, but then there's also bits coming off down the side of his nose and up a little bit as well, and it's nasty. And someone's going to open it up, and I'm going to be going Bruno Ferreira here. If this fight was in 6 months, or in 3 months or more, 6 months from the original fight, I wouldn't be as concerned about the scar. Because it's only been a few months, I'm very concerned about Gregory Rodriguez's scar. So I'm going to be going Bruno Ferreira to win it on short notice. But I do worry about Bruno gassing out as one. He's pretty undersized at 185, even though he's massive. He's only 5'10". I just like Bruno Ferreira just for that reason, man. I think Bruno Ferreira is going to run forward and open up that cut. And I think he's going to beat Gregory Rodriguez by that way. Maybe doctor stoppage TKO. Maybe he cuts him open and then finishes him after that. Just something like that's going to happen. I just got a feeling in my balls, man. It's really the only way I can explain it. Gregory Rodriguez is the better fighter, but I just don't trust that quick turnaround from that scar, man. It's really, or that cut. So, yeah, give me Bruno Ferreira. Shogun Rua is going to be capping off a great career against the 26-year-old up-and-coming Ihor Bateria in a UFC fight. How do I feel about it? Not that great, you know what I mean? So, Shogun Rua's had a legendary career. I believe it spanned 20 years, maybe even longer. It really started at the start of the early 2000s and went all the way to the end of the 2000s. Between about 2000 and 2009 was kind of like his career. 2005 to 2009, I believe, was the peak. And Shogun Rua was on the top of the world, man. He was running fried. He was doing so good, and he did come to the UFC. And to be fair, he didn't really have the same success, but he has had a very successful MMA career for sure. And it is a very fitting send-off to send him off in Brazil, his final fight in Brazil. But not against Ihor Potieria, man. Like, I think a more fitting send-off would have been maybe the Ovent St. Preux trilogy, even though the second fight wasn't that good. Alexander Gustafsson rematch. Let's re-sign Jan Vellante for a rematch. Like, I just feel like, there's much better, more fitting send-off fights for Shogun Rua than a 26-year-old up-and-coming Ihor Potieria that the UFC is trying to market because he kind of looks like Conor McGregor and he is from Ukraine. But the way that Ihor Potieria fights, it means that he's very open to getting a KO, but it also means that he's very open to get knocked out and finished by his opponents. Maybe Shogun Rua can pull off something amazing and really change my mind. But on paper, this just isn't really that good of a fight. To send a 41-year-old Shogun Rua who hasn't looked that great in years, to be honest, off into retirement for. He's fighting a 26-year-old Ihor Potieria who runs forward and just throws bombs with not really any technique whatsoever. He's kind of wailing like Juliana Pena, except he's actually had some sort of boxing training in his life. And it's just amazing what he does. Like, watch his fight on Dana White's Contender Series. This guy just runs forward and he's just throwing. Like, he's just throwing just to throw, and he's just running forward. His neck, his head's pretty exposed to get hit, and he's just running forward and taking out Lucas Sadowski. And then he fought Nikolai Negumereanu in his UFC debut, and he got absolutely destroyed. Showed toughness and a chin, but he got destroyed in that fight, man. He really did. I just don't see Shogun Rua being able to beat him though, man. I really wish we gave Shogun Rua another veteran, like a legend, like Alexander Gustafsson, Ovent St. Preux trilogy. You know, these are fights that I think would have been much more suitable to send off Shogun Rua, other than an Ihor Potieria fight. But it is what it is. I'm going with Ihor Potieria, and I do think he's going to finish Shogun Rua, unfortunately, and I do think it's going to be in the first round, and it's going to be really sad. But I hope Shogun finds something. I don't think it happens. Give me Ihor Potieria by KO. Just in the first round, is because that's how he fights. Ihor Potieria is going to run forward. He's going to swarm Shogun Rua with his constant volume and punches like he did in his Dana White's Contender Series fight. And I just think that he's maybe going to make a bit of a name for himself in this one. But maybe he gets spooked by the crowd, could be one. Because he's going to be fighting against Shogun Rua in Brazil, and the crowd is going to be nuts. The crowd is going to be wild, which is why I do think maybe a home field advantage does exist in this fight, even though it doesn't really. It's MMA, you know what I mean? But a home crowd advantage in Brazil, I think that's a pretty powerful thing to have. But yeah, I'm just gonna go the Ihor Potieria in this one, unfortunately. So Paul Craig versus Johnny Walker is gonna be happening as well on the main card. Now we've got two, and this is gonna be a banger, man. Johnny Walker is either gonna finish the fight by KO, or Paul Craig is gonna finish the fight by submission. If the fight goes the distance, I will be very surprised, but if the fight goes the distance, I do think Johnny Walker wins, which is why I'm picking Johnny Walker to win by KO. So, I think what happens here is Paul Craig, he's not really that good of a striker, is he? He's going to try and get the fight to the ground at whatever cost, but I think Johnny Walker's going to be able to defend whatever takedowns Paul Craig tries to do, even if he is flopping on his back like he tried to against Volkan Oezdemir. And Johnny Walker is going to keep the fight on the feet. Hopefully Johnny Walker doesn't try and prove a point and keep the fight on the ground. Johnny Walker's advantage is really on the feet because Paul Craig, his striking isn't really that flash. We're just going to be honest and just say it how it is. It's not that flash, but Johnny Walker's striking is pretty good. He's a little bit chinny, but I just don't think Paul Craig's going to offer much of a threat almost whatsoever to Johnny Walker on the feet. So I think Johnny Walker's going to be confident on the feet. He's not going to be worried about getting knocked out. He's got a massive range advantage as well. He's 6'6" with an 82-inch reach, and he's powerful. I think he's going to knock out Paul Craig. I think he is going to, and hopefully he doesn't just follow Paul Craig to the ground and try and ground and pound him out like poor Nikita Krylov did, and then he ends up getting submitted. So Johnny Walker by KO is the pick. Paul Craig could get a submission for sure, but he's going to have to get the fight to the ground to do that. I think Johnny Walker's going to be able to keep the fight on the feet, and as long as the fight is on the feet, Johnny Walker isn't going to be threatened by KO from Paul Craig, in my opinion. So I think he's going to win it on the feet by KO. So give me Johnny Walker in this matchup here. I think he's going to get it done inside the distance. So Jessica Andrade versus Lauren Murphy is also taking place on the main card of UFC 283. Jessica Andrade just fights at whatever weight class she pleases. This is at women's 125, but she did come off that pretty impressive win over Amanda Lemos in the first round by that standing arm triangle, I believe it was, and it was, yes. Lauren Murphy is coming off a win over Miesha Tate, and Miesha Tate, man, maybe in hindsight, maybe she shouldn't have come back. Like, she come back against Marianne Renault, and then she fought Ketlen Vieira and pulled off probably the funniest karate stance I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know why she tried to do that against Ketlen Vieira, but it was hilarious, and I highly recommend you watch that fight because it is so good. I'm trying to think of it now. It's almost as bad as Juliana Pena's boxing. But anyway, Jessica Andrade, I think she's going to knock out Lauren Murphy, and I'm thinking it's going to be in the first round, maybe the second round. But Lauren Murphy, she's really got a knack for making fights closer than they should be. I mean, she was getting beaten up by Valentina Shevchenko for a very long time, but Valentina Shevchenko, she lasted in there for a while, you know, we're talking like 3-4 rounds, sort of thing. She had a fight with Joanne Wood, which maybe shouldn't have gone her way, and before that, like, man, how did she get a title shot in hindsight? Like, how does this happen? But she beat Miesha Tate, she out-wrestled Miesha Tate, who is regarded as such a great wrestler. She was wrestling with the boys in high school, this and that, and Lauren Murphy just goes out there and out-wrestles her, which is incredible, to be honest. But I believe Jessica Andrade is going to get a KO in the matchup. I think she's very powerful. She's only 5'1" as well, so she's going to be a little bit smaller than Lauren Murphy in the matchup. That's not really a bad thing. Kind of the same sort of thing that I said in the fight with Josiane Nunes, where she can kind of get in close and then lands overhands and stuff. I don't know if I'm speaking English. I don't think I am. I'm an idiot. But anyway, I think Jessica Andrade does win by KO. She beat Cynthia Calvillo by KO at 125. She also beat Caitlin Chookagian by KO very early on in the fight. And to be fair, I think it's going to be a similar fight to the Chookagian fight, and the fact that I think Jessica Andrade finds a KO not with a shot to the head, but with a shot to the body. I think she's going to go downstairs with Lauren Murphy and hit the body, and I think she's going to find something on Lauren Murphy that's going to hurt her. And then I think after she's hurt Lauren Murphy to the body, I think she's going to start heat hunting a little bit and find the finish that way. So give me Jessica Andrade by KO, maybe some sort of body shot, but I think eventually she's just going to find a KO in the second or first round. Lauren Murphy, if she wants to win the fight, I don't really know what she does. You know what I mean? Like, what does she do? Clinch with Jessica Andrade, try and use some wrestling? But even then, Andrade is just dangerous everywhere because she's a little powerhouse, you know what I mean? And she's a former UFC champion as well at women's strawweight, which really does mean something. She beat Rose Namajunas as well to get that belt, so that's quite impressive. So I think that Andrade gets it done by KO, first or second round. And now Gilbert Burns versus Neil Magny is your featured fight, and this is a fun fight. I like it, you know what I mean? Because it's two guys at the welterweight division that will just fight anyone at any time, at any place. Neil Magny for the longest time was calling out Khamzat Chimaev. Gilbert Burns was also calling for Khamzat Chimaev. Magny never got the fight, but I think we know how it would have gone. And Gilbert Burns did get the fight, and it was very competitive and it was very fun, but I do think Khamzat Chimaev won the first and the third round. A lot of people think that Gilbert Burns won the third round, but I just don't think you can make that argument, because I think Khamzat was hurting Burns more in the third round than Burns was hurting Khamzat, for sure. But yeah, Neil Magny, low-key, maybe like a live underdog in this one, but I do think Gilbert Burns gets it done. I'm seeing some people say that Neil Magny's got no chance in this fight whatsoever, and I do have to disagree quite a bit, because Gilbert Burns is pretty small for 170, and Neil Magny's very long in range. He's got an 80-inch reach, and he's 6'3", which is a 9-inch reach advantage over Gilbert Burns. And Gilbert Burns has struggled in the past with guys that have really good jabs and really good straight punches, and that's what Neil Magny does. He throws straight punches with his range, and he can stay on the outside with his long limbs. But I don't think Gilbert Burns is going to let that happen in the matchup. I think Gilbert Burns on the feet is going to be closing the distance and trying to land his own bombs, and I do think he's going to be shooting for takedowns on Neil Magny as well, because I do like his jiu-jitsu in this fight as well. Gilbert Burns, former world champion jiu-jitsu guy, I believe. I think I'm correct in saying that. But yeah, just hasn't really got that many submissions in a long time. I think his last submission was in 2019, I think. But I could be wrong on that too. But he hasn't really got that many submissions in the UFC as of recent. But I think he really might be trying to work for a submission over Neil Magny, because I do think that's a pretty good path to victory for him. I do think the fight goes the distance, though. I think these guys might go to war. I think it's going to be very fun. Shout out to Neil Magny for taking any fight whatsoever, because Gilbert Burns, I think, was meant to fight Jorge Masvidal in this one, and I do think Gilbert Burns would have submitted Jorge Masvidal, but Jorge Masvidal didn't want the fight. I don't know what Jorge Masvidal's up to. Would have been a good opportunity, because I think Masvidal's ranked 11th right now, and Gilbert Burns is ranked number 3. So I don't know what Masvidal was trying to do, trying to avoid this fight, but it's a big opportunity now for Neil McKinney to really get his name out there, especially if even if he loses and gets a really competitive fight with Gilbert Burns. At the end of the day, Neil McKinney does have the most wins in UFC welterweight history, which is absolutely ridiculous. I do believe he's fought every fight at welterweight with 20 wins. He's been around for a long time, man. Wait, that's a pretty awesome pretty awesome thing to have. But we have seen Neil McKinney submitted a few times. Gilbert Burns' submission's pretty live, KO's pretty live, decision's pretty live. I think Gilbert Burns can get it done almost anywhere. But watch out for Neil McKinney maybe staying at range and picking Gilbert Burns apart over time. But I don't think Gilbert Burns will let that happen in this matchup. So I've got Burns. I don't actually know about a prop. A prop's a tough one. You know, he could get it done by KO. He could get it done by submission. He could get it done by some decision as well. But I think Neil McKinney's got a path to victory here, but I think that's really the only way he beats him. I think Gilbert Burns, aside from that, can brawl with Neil McKinney. I think he can get takedowns against Neil McKinney and kind of make it like the Wonder Boy fight, which is really boring, but he could do that. And he also could try and use his jiu-jitsu as well. But I think that we're going to be going with Gilbert Burns in this matchup here. Shout out to both guys for taking the fight, and it should be a fun one. And now we're already at the co-main event, man. This is such a long card. This is the 14th fight on the card. I love 15 fight cards, but man, they can be a little bit of a pain to record videos for because they take so long. But Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 4. I've got Deiveson Figueiredo in the matchup, man. I really do believe that Deiveson Figueiredo, over the course of the last 3 fights, has proven to be overall the better fighter out of the two. So I've seen people say that they think that Brandon Moreno has proven to be the better fighter of the two, but at the end of the day, man, Deiveson Figueiredo should have won the first fight. You know, he got deducted a point, which was fair enough, but the key isn't the point deduction. The key is the fact that 2 judges gave Brandon Moreno the 5th round to make the fight a draw, which is just unbelievable. Like, I cannot believe that happened. Deiveson Figueiredo should have won that fight by maybe it would have been a majority decision, and we could have moved on, but man, we've got to this point now. We've got 4 fights. I know Figueiredo's getting older, and I know like maybe Brandon Moreno is winning most of the minutes in the last fight, but I do genuinely believe that Deiveson Figueiredo is the guy that's proving he is the better fighter out of the two. And I've just got to go Deiveson Figueiredo. I do think he's actually going to land on Brandon Moreno in this matchup. I think he's going to get a KO. I'm not going to buy too much into the Glory MMA situation really, because I know that Brandon Moreno was able to find a new camp pretty easily because he is fighting for a belt. Like, what camp wouldn't take him on? So I think he's going to be training with Fortis MMA or Factory X Muay Thai. I think it's Fortis MMA he's doing the camp with right now. But I just think Deiveson Figueiredo finishes him, man. He's got the home crowd advantage as well, which is going to be important because we know the Brazilian crowd is going to be restless. They're going to be wild and they're going to be cheering for the Brazilian champion and Deiveson Figueiredo. I do think that he's just going to find the chin of Brandon Moreno and knock him out. But the problem is, every time I want to kind of reference something awesome, it's years ago for Deiveson Figueiredo. Like, his domination of Alex Perez, his absolute domination of Joseph Benavidez twice, you know, and that was years ago at this point, and now Deiveson Figueiredo is 35 years old at flyweight. But the good news is, and the bad news for Brandon Moreno is, Deiveson Figueiredo is on weight. You know, I think he's only like 8 pounds away, 8.8 pounds away from making weight. A week out from the fight, he's looking good. The weight cut's going to be good because at the end of the day, Deiveson Figueiredo, at the point on or at the round that the judges should have given Figgy, he's undefeated against Brandon Moreno with good weight cuts. You know what I mean? He had a good weight cut against Moreno, dropped Moreno 3 times in that fight. Maybe 4 times actually. I think it was 3 times. Drew with Moreno officially, but it should have been a Figueiredo decision. Let's be real. 2 judges giving Moreno the 5th round. That's a crime. That's a crime. That's criminal. I'm sorry. I think Figueiredo's going to touch the chin. I think he's going to get a KO in this matchup here, and I'm pretty confident in it. I'm not that keen on Moreno. You know what I mean? He had a pretty good performance against Kai Kara France. Those scorecards were weird. I had Brandon Moreno won the first 2 rounds, but I thought that Kai Kara France was about to win the 3rd round before he got finished. But some judge had it 2-0 Kai Kara France. One judge had it 2-0 Moreno. One judge had it 1-1. The scorecards would have been very interesting at the end of the fight, but if it made it 5 rounds. But I just got to figure out on this fight. I think he's going to find the chin. I think he's going to find the chin and get a KO. There's no way he's not making improvements as well, training with Cejudo consistently like he is. And I know that there's talk about him moving up to 135 after this, which is pretty concerning, especially considering we're talking about a 125-pound fight here. But I do believe Figueiredo's going to take this one very seriously. It's in Brazil. There's no way he wants to lose in Brazil. I think he's going to get it done by KO. I think he's going to knock out Brandon Moreno some point in the first, second, third, or fourth round. That's very broad. I know, that's the pick. Let's get to the main event, eh? And now we're finally at the main event, the 15th fight on the card. That's a big card. I love 15 fight cards, I really do. And I really cannot wait to watch it, man. It's going to be so good. 15 fights. I should announce that I'm thinking about doing a fight companion for this card. So if you're interested in that whatsoever, do let me know in the comments. I'm not too sure if I'll do it because I just don't think my channel's big enough to hold an audience of enough people to keep the chat relatively active. I just don't think enough people would show up. But I'm thinking about it. I'm considering it. I just don't know for sure if it would be the best idea. But I'm looking forward to the card nonetheless. Glover Teixeira versus Jamahal Hill is going to be a very fun main event. But I do think Glover Teixeira does get it done by submission. Jamahal Hill got taken down 6 times by Thiago Santos. And he did show good takedown defense for the most part. He defended a lot of takedowns in that one. But I just think with this also being a short notice fight, don't forget that it is a pretty short notice made fight because of the draw between Magomed Ankalaev and Jan Blachowicz. Jamahal Hill, I just don't think he's had enough time to prepare to defend the takedowns that Glover goes for. Because Glover doesn't just go for traditional takedowns. He does mix it up a little bit and he really can get Jamahal held down in multiple ways. And I do think that Glover Teixeira, if Santos is getting 6 takedowns on Jamahal Hill, Glover Teixeira is getting 6 takedowns or more, and he's also getting a submission or trying to lock up submission attempts during that period of time. I think he would submit Jamahal Hill, given the same opportunities that Thiago Santos was offered. So I've got Glover Teixeira by submission in the matchup. My biggest fear is that Glover Teixeira is going to win. He's going to win the belt, and then he's going to retire with the belt. And now we've got a vacant light heavyweight championship again. And then, like, what do you do? Do we just do Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev rematch for the belt? Like, what do we do? You know what I mean? It's a tough situation we found ourselves in. But all that being said, though, Glover Teixeira being on the feet with Jamahal Hill, he is going to be in danger for sure. Jamahal Hill is a dangerous guy. He does get KOs. I mean, he knocked out Thiago Santos eventually. It took him a while to do so. He knocked out Johnny Walker hilariously. He knocked out Jimmy Crute, but Jimmy Crute's not the same level striker as Johnny Walker and Thiago Santos, in my opinion. Glover Teixeira is a pretty good striker too. He actually started out as a striker with jiu-jitsu in the background, and then he's turned into more of a grappling heavy guy with striking now. But I just think that Glover Teixeira, we do have to be a little bit realistic here. He is 43 years old. He's not that young. He's not young in the game either. He's had 41 fights. And I do think he's going to be a lot slower on the feet than Jamahal Hill. He was a lot slower on the feet than Yuri. And he was a lot slower in general than Yuri. But that was Yuri Prochazka, was very good. And he was probably winning that fight as well before he got finished. But the thing in that matchup, though, Glover really was quite slow. You know, he really was. He was slow after he got a takedown. It took him a little bit to react, or it took a little while for him to get to the ground. And Jamahal Hill, I just don't think that Jamahal Hill is the same level of grappler at this point in Yuri, because Yuri had a full training camp to prepare for Glover, and he showed some incredibly good grappling defense in that matchup to Yuri, and I just don't think Jamahal Hill, with the short training camp that he's had, is going to be prepared for what Glover Teixeira is going to bring to him in the grappling. But as I said, though, it's going to be dangerous for Glover on the feet, because Jamahal Hill is very, very dangerous. He's also very good on the feet. He's got power. He's very fast. Am I speaking English? I think I'm just repeating myself over and over again. The point is, I think Glover's going to win by submission in the first 3 rounds with his wrestling and grappling. But it's going to be dangerous to get there, because I do think Jamahal Hill does have an advantage on the feet. I know Glover's very, very powerful, and he is a good striker in his own right. But at the end of the day, Glover is 43 years old. He's just not the same guy as he was years ago, you know what I mean? Because Glover is 43 years, a lot slower than he was. Jamahal Hill's pretty fast, and he's pretty young, so I think Jamahal Hill has a chance of getting the KO, but I think Glover gets it done by submission. Interesting that Jamahal Hill's the favourite. I think it's just the fact that Glover is so old, but I just don't see Hill getting taken down 6 times by Thiago Santos and then expecting to get taken down 6 times by Glover Teixeira and not getting submitted or finished, you know, by ground and pound or something like that. So give me Glover Teixeira to win the bout. but I fear he's going to vacate it and retire. I mean, I would understand if Glover Teixeira won the belt over Jamal Hill and then retired. I would completely understand. It would be a good way to go out, finish on the top, but for the company, it would be a mess. It would be a mess. But yeah, Yuri, we need Yuri to come back to restore order at the light heavyweight division. You know what I mean? But wow, UFC is sponsored by Steak now as well. That's interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah. Let's go. UFC 283, Teixeira versus Hill. If you're interested in a fight companion, let me know. I think I will do it. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch a few prelims, and if nobody shows up, I'm just going to end it and call it there. But I'm looking forward to the card. Hopefully we can do a fight companion or something like that. I think it's going to be fun. Glover will see his way out of the elite. He's 43 and can't hang with a young strike. I just don't think it's going to last 5 rounds. That's my opinion. I just don't think it's going to last 5 rounds, but yeah, let me know. Let me know what you think about this fight. Let me know what you think about this card. I really would appreciate your input. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, which is probably going to be almost an hour long, please leave a like if you haven't already, and please do subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't, and I would appreciate you did that. But also, maybe if you wanted to bet on the card, you've made it this far, and maybe you've got a little bit of money that you put aside for the card and you want to double it, or maybe a little bit more, you can use this link to get a 125% bonus, which is pretty good in my opinion. So let me know what you think about that, and I'll see you in the next video.